It's not in the face! Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Hey, Not the Face with your host, John Nash, and your producer, me, Steffi Haynes. And today we are going to talk about TKO. We are going to look at it from all angles, from their site fees to their attempted takeover of boxing through this Ali Act, this brand new Ali Act bill. We're going to talk about Conor McGregor, and we're even going to have a tiny bit on Matchroom. But if you want access to all of those things, you're going to need to subscribe with your money because, as you all know by now, some of this will be behind a paywall. Now, John, how the heck are you? Here we are, almost at the end of the week. How you doing?
Good. I just realized something. When I'm working remotely, I sometimes forget to shower, and I don't think I've showered in 2 days. The girlfriend's out of town, and I'm here. I'm not going to the office, and it just kind of dawned on me that I am kind of funky here. So I am. I guess I'm stewing in my own scent over here.
And how did you come to this realization? Is the cat staying away from you?
No, that's not. I reached over for something. I just smelt myself. I'm like, Jesus, that's not good at all.
Oh my gosh. See, folks, you are getting the unadulterated version of John today.
See, aren't you guys lucky we don't do this in person? Jeez, studio audience, you'd all be dying.
You know, that reminds me of something. Yesterday, I went to renew my driver's license and I sat for more than 3 hours. It was about 3 hours and 20 minutes that I had to sit, and I had an appointment as well. I booked my appointment about a month and a half ago, and I normally go to a super center where you just, buzzsaw through, you're in and out in 20 minutes. But the super center was booked when I made my appointment at the end of July. The super center was booked all the way to the end of November. And that would have put me, 3.5 months past due of my driver's license expiring. So I took a satellite location. And it's this small little rundown building where they just have a few chairs thrown down, and you got to go in and take a number even if you have an appointment. And there was somebody either in front of me or behind me, I could not tell which, that smelled funky. And I'm just wondering if maybe they were in your shoes and they were working from home and forgot they hadn't showered.
That's possible. It's also possible I showed up at the DMV in Texas out of nowhere. just to spread the love.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, I guess we should go ahead and move past bodily funk and get into the funky business of this Ali Act bill proposal, because there's been a lot of buzz about it just since we last talked on Monday night. This week, TGB, their president, their CEO, I can't remember if he's president or CEO, but in any event, TGB's Tom Brown, he had that letter that we briefly talked about a week or so ago, supporting the Ali Act bill proposal. It went public finally. What were some of the criticisms from those in the community, like Lou DiBella and Gilberto Mendoza?
Well, the only thing that stinks more than me is the fight business. So let's get talking about that, I guess. So, yeah, well, also, we're the first people that released that that letter. Which is kind of amusing. Now, I don't really need credit all the time. This is it's a public disclosed letter that I got from the California State Athletic Commission. So it's not like I got, using my incredible investigative reporting, I went and posted this. But I did notice that I had altered the image slightly by editing out Brown's phone number, who is the president. That's his official title of TGB. I edited out his phone number and I cropped out the cell phone image that the photo came from, just because I didn't want, that's personal stuff. That's not necessary to the photo. And I noticed everybody sharing this and they weren't crediting us. And I'm not saying we need credit because of the ego, but if you're going to share an image that you got from someone who just posted on Twitter, you should probably credit them. That way you can't be blamed if that image ever proves to be incorrect, right? I have faith in what I posted, but I'm just saying, for all these people, I just noticed there's a trend in all these, I don't know, influencers what, but they grab images and then they just kind of post it themselves and take credit for it without revealing where the source is. And you'd think they would just want to include my Twitter handle just to say, listen, I'm not the source of this, so there's something wrong with it. Go get this guy, not me. But no one did that. So
not
that was just
only that, if I may, if you're going to be the only one that's actually going to do the legwork and contact the California State Athletic Commission and wait around on the phone and wait around for the email and do all that legwork, then you should be credited. And I don't care if it's for, I need the publicity or whatever. You should be credited for all the legwork you did.
Well,
That's just
honestly,
my 2 cents.
I understand that, but honestly, I didn't do that much legwork on this one. But I understand that. But I think just in your own self-preservation, it's just that's the more than just crediting people for the work they did, more for your own self-preservation, you'd want to credit those that supplied that got the information, just because it's you did not go, because you could always go and just call, contact the California State Athletic Commission, ask on your own, and then just post that image. But it's obviously they took the image that I had altered slightly because I wanted to remove the phone number that was in it, which is just what you're kind of do out of just, respect for people, because you never know who's going to start harassing people if that number's out there. But anyways, let's get back to the matter at hand. And that is this letter that I had requested was sent to me. And there's interesting aspects of the letter I'm sure we can get into later. But the response was interesting as well. And I should credit, too, a lot of people did also. HT hat tip or whatever. So they did do the proper method of revealing the source of the material. But the response was interesting because one was you had people like Lou DiBella, who had been kind of, I don't when he's on Ariel Helwani, he seemed a little more wishy-washy on his negativity towards this bill, but he really came out against this. He said he was disappointed in Tom Brown. And then you had Gilberto Mendoza earlier, we talked about last week, who had been on, he had talked about the release of this letter, how it was discussed by Andy Foster at the California State Athletic Commission hearing. And he had some sharp comments about it. It's also interesting to note that Matt Brown, not the MMA fighter Matt Brown, but the Matt Brown at Brunch Boxing, he posted an article about that Gilbert Mendoza comments and did a much better job translating the Spanish, I guess, than I do, because he had some details that I missed when I watched the interview. And one of them is he mentioned how they'd done so much for PBC, I think is how it was phrased. Mm-hmm. And that raised questions right there. What have you done for him and how have you assisted Brown and PBC? I'd be curious to elaborate on that. But he also was upset about this, this letter from Brown because he thought it was he thinks it's a betrayal somehow. I would love to get him on to elaborate on that, how it's a betrayal to him. But that was, overall, there seemed to be a very negative response from the boxing community towards that letter that Tom Brown wrote. And also, there was a little bit of, I guess, some support from some fans because I think they saw this as, here is a well-respected promoter backing this bill, so this gives us the right to also back it because we have someone on our side now.
Dan Raphael interviewed him and got some clarifications from him about some things in that letter. What were they?
Well, we don't have the full interview yet. He said he's going to talk to him in an interview, but he posted on Twitter that he had some immediate clarifications and that what Brown said is that there are aspects he supports, namely the health and safety parts, but he said he thought about the UFOs, not UFOs, UBOs, Unified Boxing Organization portion of the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act, and he wanted to clarify in those. And he still said, according to this tweet by Dan Raphael, he still favors sanctioning body model but thinks UBO might be good for club level guys, but not for elite boxers. That was the kind of the summary response that Dan Raphael posted. So I'm waiting for that full interview to drop so we can see more of what his position is. But that argument he makes here, his thoughts here do not really match the letter he wrote.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're going to allow the UBOs at the club level, isn't that giving them a foot in the door to advance their position further than just the club level?
Well, I think exactly that. But also it's like, why would you do that? Why would you spend money on just club level shows? Why would you build a training facility and pay for the additional insurance coverage, the injury insurance coverage outside the night of the fight for club level shows? I mean, it kind of doesn't make sense just because the financial, the amount of money you have put financially into that, you're going to want some return on investment, right? And so I think that's two parts. One is, it's a foot in the door. Two, it's obvious that's not going to be, club shows are not going to be the end game. So maybe that is good for club show boxers, but no one can operate as a club show like that.
Now, you made some notes yourself on this letter. I believe a date was involved and a few other things. So tell me what you thought of the letter.
Well, I mean, the things that are, some people brought up that this was leaked. And I know Zach Arnold on Twitter brought up, I think it was Boxing Gray, that he thinks it was leaked. And Zach Arnold said, how could it be leaked? It was cited by Andy Foster at the hearing. And that's true. Also, it wasn't leaked. It was given to me by the State Athletic Commission, and I posted it. So by definition, that's not a leak. It's publicly available material. It was made public. Now, the leak part might be, I do suspect that maybe Brown did not want this public. This seems like it might be a draft. You notice that there's no signature on it, and the date is November 5th. My understanding is that there is a hearing or a hearing date marked, scheduled. No subject yet, but it seems very possible that there is a hearing scheduled for the Education and Workforce Committee, I think is where it would be at. I think that's the committee that the bill has been submitted. There's an empty spot at that date that might take place. So I think that's an opening there. I think that's what the November 5th is because it matches that date. So this letter is meant to be introduced during that hearing. And as I mentioned before, it's interesting to note that his position he takes with Dan Raphael is very different in what he argues in this bill, that the UBOs are very important, he says in this bill. He talks about the fundamental innovation is the express allowance of the alternate system in which a unified boxing organization is permitted to compete. And then he basically talks about how this helps fix the problems, but letting this UBO, how important it is, where to Dan Raphael, he says he's opposed to him. So my guess is he wrote this letter. It was sent to be used during the hearing November 5th, but when it got mentioned by Andy Foster, and perhaps Andy mentioned it because he was having no support in that hearing, and so he pulled something out that offered support. It alarmed and made upset other people in the boxing industry, and that has got Brown to change his opinion because he realizes, man, I've angered a lot of people. But again, that's just me theorizing. That I have don't quote me on that, people. That's not, you can't say that as a fact. That's me theorizing, but it seems logical to me that that's what happened.
Jake Paul even joined the discourse about this bill. What did he have to say? And conversely, what does Nikisa Badarian have to say, who is his partner in Most Valuable Promotions?
Well, Jake Paul, as he was promoting his massive super fight against Gervonta Davis, as he was, talking about how it's going to be someone's getting knocked out, as he brings up again. As he brought that up again, he talked about he mentioned that there's a reason why they have the Ollie Act, and he supported. He was opposed to amending it. He made the argument we do not want fighters getting taken advantage of, that the Ollie Act was put in place to protect boxers, and that bringing the UFC model into boxing would be bad for the boxers. So he made that argument. He made it clear he is opposed to this bill. Now that is different than what Nikisa Badarian has been saying. And I guess he just did an interview with MMA Junkie, I believe it was. He clarified his position, Badarian, but he says he doesn't care either way if it's passed or not passed because it doesn't impact the way he does business. It's, according to Badarian, is out there to protect against bad actors. And of course, MVP is not a bad actor. They're the most upstanding promotion in the world. You need no protections from them. So tongue in cheek when I say that. But that's the position he takes, which is, it makes some sense because if you think logically, the bill, the components of the bill are in many ways there to protect fighters that are moving to the top of the sport and are competing and more. It's about the sporting part of boxing. It's not perfect, as and Pat English said when I had him on, as Lou DiBello say, everybody will say, it's not perfect, the bill, but it protects the fighters that are moving up the ranks in kind of a sporting in the sporting side, that as boxing, if we view boxing as a sport, it protects them from having to sign away their rights to get a title shot. It protects them from, allows them to make an argument about their rank. It protects them if they're mandatory. All the things that if you were legitimate meritocratic competitor, it protects you. And for the most part, MVP is not involved in that. They are involved in spectacles, spectacular fights, massive events with Jake Paul that have very little to do with the sporting side of boxing and much more with the spectacle to sell as much as possible. And so it makes some sense that for Badarian, there's no reason even to think about the implications of the bill because they are not in that business that the bill was meant to protect.
Now, TKO appears to be targeting a specific House committee for this bill. Can you explain all about the committees and then explain why they're targeting this committee and how they go about securing that vote?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to the Education and Workforce Committee, which is interesting because the original committee, this was not the original committee back in the 90s that it went to. But if you remember the Ali Expansion Act, one of the committees it went to was Education and Workforce. And my understanding was it was kind of required to be submitted to that. I'm not certain why, but whoever ran the Congress at the time wanted Mark Wayne Mullen to submit it to Education and Workforce. I guess they think under the new rules and division that covers whatever they were trying to do with the Ali Act. And so that would explain why the committee's Education and Workforce that the new bill, again, the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act was submitted. And that's the one as we were talking about, we think that there's going to be a hearing November 5th. And so that's where this bill is going. Now, why would they want a hearing? Why also would they want it in that committee? Well, there's a Republican majority, a very narrow Republican majority in the House right now. So committees is the way it works is, they divide the House membership. They all join committees, and those committees are responsible for certain bills, certain subjects. And so you submit that bill to that committee because they are supposed to have the expertise to look it over. And so in the Education and Workforce, it's interesting that I believe right now the split is 21 Republicans, 16 Democrats. So it has a 5-member GOP lead. And if we noted last time we talked that all the co-sponsors, except for the original co-sponsor, Sharice Davis, are Republicans. So this looks like it might be a Republican bill. And while that's not a huge lead, there's other committees that have bigger leads, but those are like the rules committees and stuff that are, they do not look over bills like this. This is one of the larger Republican leads, majorities of the committees currently. And so I wonder if that has something to do with it. They want it in this chamber because as we kind of assume, it might not be right, but we kind of assume that the fix is in, that Donald Trump is going to call Republican Party or call the leadership and the whips, and they're going to get everybody together and say, we're going to pass this bill. If that's the case, then you want as many Republicans as possible in that committee to make sure and get out of committee as quick as possible with as little markups as possible. And so that's my suspicion. So, I think that's the reason they're going to that committee. Now, one thing of note in that committee, I think there might be one hurdle if it does end up in that committee for a hearing, is that Ilhan Omar is in that committee. And she is one of the few, at least they're aware of, boxing fans, major boxing combat sports fans in the House of Representatives. And I imagine if you see her interact on Twitter with people talking about boxing, I imagine she is aware of the concern about this bill. So she could be perhaps the one person they don't want talking about it in committee, asking pointed questions or at hearings. But that's where, that's what they might be facing now.
Now we're going to switch gears here a little bit, and we're still talking TKO, but we're going to go on to site fees because that news is also making the rounds again. Mark Shapiro went on record saying that if states / countries wanted UFC events, they'd have to pay for them. Now, the news today, and this has made news on television and on media sites in Australia, is that they are not happy with their ticket sales for this weekend's Perth card, with some outlets saying that only about 50% of the arena has sold. What's your take on that?
Oh, 50%. That's good. That's a good amount. I can't imagine a card starting at 6 a.m. in the morning there with a crappy card, expensive tickets. I can't imagine why that wouldn't sell out immediately. But I mean, I'm for the UFC, I guess it says a couple things. One is we know they are pushing as far as possible with their ticket sales, right? As they said before, Shapiro said before, and we should know these comments that MMA Fighting posted that created this big story. These were said a while ago. In fact, we covered this when they were said by Mark Shapiro at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference. But it's worth, now that everybody's discussing it, it's worth revisiting. But as they said, then they want to maximize their yield and their ticket returns. They're trying to get as much out of the ticket sales as possible, but they're also trying to get site fees out of this. And they're playing everybody against everybody. As Mark Shapiro said in that on that interview at the Cornucopia and Technology Conference, he had a great kind of quote that summed it up. If we got a St. Louis up against a Des Moines, Iowa, if you want us back there and you've sold out and broken records in both arenas, you have to pay for us to come back or else we'll take it to another town. And that's what's kind of happened here in Australia. Australia paid for the site fee deal. And so they paid out millions. I think it was 16 million for 3 events. I never got clarification if that was Canadian, Australian dollars though, or United States dollars, but still 16 million guaranteed to the UFC for them to bring for 3 events to bring them to there. And then they also get the ticket sales. So the UFC has made the decision to send them what seems to be a subpar event. Have put it on a time that's more beneficial to their TV audience somewhere else. And for that reason, they're not selling tickets, but I don't think the UFC cares because they got the site fee. And if it doesn't do well, they will bring the show because there's a limited number of shows and they control that limited number of shows with the UFC and WWE, and they will bring it to another town that's willing to meet their fee. And so, the Australian fans, you're going to have to suck it up and just live with it. But it's also interesting to note that this comes on the heel of some criticisms to this site fee deal that was paid by the state in Australia. And there was a documentary by ABC, which is the Australian broadcasting company. I should clarify, not ABC America. I think it was called Four Corners. I appeared in that documentary, so I should remember it. But they had some criticisms towards the site fee. And so some people theorize, well, are people not buying tickets because maybe they saw this documentary? I don't think that's plausible, tell you the truth. But I do think that the public, if the event does pour and they do not get a big audience, and yet the municipality or whatever, the regional body that paid this fee, and people are aware that they paid this large fee, there might be some blowback directed at them, which I think is very likely.
Now, John said cornucopia earlier. It was
Communicopia.
Communicopia. And also, the card is not just subpar. It's awful. There's a single ranked fight on it, and it's not even a good ranked fight. There's only 3 ranked fighters on it. There's 14 fighters coming from the Contender Series. There's literally no barrier for entry. There's lots of people on there that are barely breaking even with a 500 record. I mean, it's just an awful card.
You cannot say it's an awful card until the card happens. You know the rule. That's the rule.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but if you've got 2 bums on the corner and they put on a good fight, is it worth going on TV? Is it worth part of a $16 million site fee deal and ticket sales? Come on.
Yeah, that's got to be a rhetorical question because I know the answer to that.
Barrier for entry non-existent these days. It's awful. But anyways, let's move on here because we might have a bidding war, I think. I don't know. I'm going to ask you about this. Former UFC stakeholder Sheikh Tanoun of the UAE has big crypto dealings with Donald Trump. I mean, to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. Could we see a bidding war between the Saudis and the UAE?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we possibly could see because there is a friendly rivalry here, but it's worth noting that is this again. I'm going to credit Rob Joyner again. He directed us this article originally. Is that direct investment, money being spent by money being invested, I should say, outflows of cash, not inflows, by Saudi Arabia. It went up like 46% from 2022 to May of this year. That is a comparison to which is still it's an increase of money being spent, but compared to the money that's come in from investments, money spending outwards went 46%, the money coming in as investments went up 60%. So more money's flowing into the kingdom, which is good news for them for their project, what they're trying to do. But it also shows that there's been a slowdown in the amount of spending that they have, and compare that to the outflows from the United Arab Emirates. It has spent their outflows have tripled in that span to about $95 billion. So they're spending much more money. So it seems likely that, there might be a bidding war, but there also might be the project. No, I shouldn't say the project. The possibility that Saudi Arabia, they're just naturally going to start tightening their purses because they probably been spending way too freely. And that the person that's much more likely to spend money on that is the United Arab Emirates, who are now making a move on, a lot of different ventures and stuff. So I think that's a strong possibility. The other thing to keep an eye on this, the whole thing too, is with Sheikh Tanoun and all these dealings that are going on, is the connections that are between all the entities, because it is actually a small group of people making all these connections right now. And if you look at like the United Arab Emirates deal with the with the AI chip thing the deal they just cut, it's money being invested by United Arab Emirates into Binance, the crypto exchange, which then goes into World Liberty Finances, which is then owned by Witkoff and the Trump family. So they basically just gave them $2 billion. And then in turn for that, the White House comes to an agreement where high tech, high chips, the most ones that are most tightly controlled for security for AI are allowed to be sent to United Arab Emirates. So, and who brokered those deals like that? Well, funny enough, it's, Marty Edelman, who is the personal attorney basically to the United Emirates, but who used to work for the Fertittas as their attorney and is very tight with Ari Emanuel. So we are talking about a very small group, almost incestuous relationships in almost everything we talk about, be it combat sports or the global powers.
To access the bonus content of this episode, you must be a paid subscriber. To do that, go to heynottheface.substack.com and subscribe today.
Ow! Ow! Not the face! Ooh! Okay, the face!